everyone, welcome to today's webinar. So today we're talking about a couple different ways that you can automate to improve how you deliver your IT service. We like to cover automation probably once a month. It's a topic that we're really passionate about Enable. We see a lot of MSPs finding it harder and harder to be profitable, to get everything that they want to get done nowadays. The phone is ringing off the hook. You're supporting tons of customers. There's IT projects that need to be done. So if we can provide some tips on how automation can take over the manual tasks, the nitpicky details, so you can focus on the important stuff, that's something that we want to impart today. So jumping right into this, like I said, we're really passionate about automation at Enable. We think it's awesome, and if done correctly and without a ton of effort, we think you can get a lot of quick wins. So the ability to easily onboard, automatically discover devices, automatically set up monitoring, we want to take away all the manual aspects of that so you can get it done faster, and again, so you can get back to focusing on the work that matters. This is something we talk about a lot, eliminating all those repetitive tasks. Anything that you do proactively, maintenance-wise, you can probably be automating. We'll talk about, a better way to do ticket management, making sure that tickets get addressed, making sure they're escalated if they don't get addressed. And then finally kind of wrapping things up with, I've done all this automation work. How do I turn around and show the customer what I'm doing in an automated way? Again, we don't want to have to manually track all of the work we're doing. So how do I automatically report everything I'm doing and show value to the customer who's paying the bills? And then at the end, after Shawn's walked us through all of this, I'd actually like to talk some numbers. We've done a little bit of talking around here at Enable, and we talked to some customers, and we just want to show you a little bit about the ROI of automation. So Shawn, I will hand things over to you.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Ali. There's many components, obviously, to automation, and there's many components in an RMM solution that combined together equals that automated platform. Onboarding in any RMM solution can be challenging. It can be very time consuming. There's a lot of moving components to it. But within the Incentral software, we have done our best to automate the process and build in best practice and build in those components right out of the box. Part of Incentral is a Windows probe, and this Windows probe goes out, it scans the environment, and automatically picks up any device that has an IP address, and it automatically applies best practice monitoring. If you think, think to when you take one of your prospects on board. You walk into their site. You don't know if they have 5 computers or 25 computers. The current state of their environment is a lot of times in shambles, and keep in mind too that more than likely their environment is not in good shape for the fact that you are taking over that site and from someone that is probably managing it in a pretty poorly way. So with that being said, built right into Incentral, we have pre-built best practice monitoring, meaning that when you drop that probe into the site, it will automatically pick up those devices, classify them, and apply the monitoring that you'd expect from a platform. So if you go into an environment with an Exchange server, it automatically sets up Exchange monitoring for you. And that's call it one component of what our automated onboarding contains. The other piece to this, of course, is when it does discover Exchange, what would I want to do to that device? What do I want to set up to that device? If I'm onboarding a customer, maybe that customer is a silver customer, a gold, a platinum customer. Whether you use precious metals or a premium versus a basic customer, when I onboard those sites, using the Incentral filter and rules, I can automatically classify those devices and place them in the appropriate group. So when I onboard that customer that is a silver, well, out of the box, it automatically sets up the monitoring for me. In those customers that have a higher SLA, a better program level with you, I want to automatically enable AV, automatically set up patch, and perhaps I even want to do proactive maintenance. So not just automatically resolve a problem through self-healing capabilities, but proactively correct some of the problems for me.
And Sean, we get this question sometimes. Let's say I have a gold level customer that's getting the monitoring, the AV, the patch. I've onboarded all their current devices, but then they hire 10 more people. What happens to the new devices? Do I have to go back and set those up?
Yeah, so the N-central platform is designed for the fact that that probe that I mentioned that you dropped in the site, it scanned, it picked up its devices and set everything up. It's designed so that when they bring on 10 more employees tomorrow, during that daily scan, it automatically picks those up and configures them the same as the other devices. So any new device, any new user, when we find those assets in the environment, it automatically sets it up to the same spec. Now, when it comes to monitoring, of course there's components there of reactive type tasks. I'm monitoring Sally's laptop, the hard drive fills up. I want to react to that. I want it to N-central to automatically clean up that hard drive and of course keep track of that and bill for that. But there's also a second component to this, which is proactive maintenance. So, I previous to being on the product management team, I was about 5 years on our sales engineering team. And, part of my role was when new customers would come on board and when I was interacting with prospects as well, is that, the customers I worked with often had checklists. They had these long Excel checklists of remote to a PC, check event logs, go and check this log file of some backup software that they happen to be using. And that whole process was manual. It was always manual. It took someone X amount of hours a month, 10 hours a month, sometimes to go through server by server. And oftentimes it had to be done after hours. What we would do with those checklists is we'd translate those into proactive and reactive maintenance. And the vehicle that we translate, the vehicle we deliver this in, is Automation Manager. Automation Manager is a completely visual drag and drop scripting environment. Automation Manager allows me to take around 650 actions or what we call objects and automatically take these actions and automate proactive maintenance or configure them in a reactive fashion to resolve something when it comes up for me. Automation Manager is really unique. It's been around now for a few versions in the N-central platform, and it's really unique because it addresses a need that we heard for many years, which is, I have the need to write a script. I have the need to automate something. I have the need to proactively, execute some sort of task or react to a situation, but I don't have the means to do it. So, just even in my experience before working here at Enable, I worked for an MSP located in Toronto, Canada. And, my experience was in Cisco. My experience was in Microsoft platforms. I had little to no experience in scripting or programming to any degree. It was very much in a support background. So something like, hey, whip up a VBS script to reset passwords wasn't a 15-minute exercise. It was an hour and a half of Google and mashing things together, and eventually it didn't work, and I moved on and ended up doing it manually. Automation Manager was designed for me, for a technician like me, who I had a networking background. I didn't have a background that was relevant to scripting or programming. So what we did is we took this almost like a whiteboard, and we allowed you to drag and drop these objects or these actions onto this whiteboard to produce some sort of task or what we call a policy. So what that meant was something like, a hard drive is filling up. Well, I'm going to check the space. I'm going to check how many hard drives there are. I'm going to make sure that each one of my hard drives, when I execute the task, I'm only executing the cleanup drive task against those hard drives that need it. So we designed this Automation Manager so that someone who doesn't have a programming background can literally drag and drop those tasks or those actions into this whiteboard. Now, of course, that turns into what we call a policy, and that translates back into N-central in a sense that now I can take these policies, just like I was talking about program levels there, I can say, well, this rule uses my policy or automatically sets up proactive maintenance on Exchange, for example.
So Sean, we have 650 objects, like you said. That's a lot of combinations. What if someone has a script that they've already written and they do want to run some PowerShell or custom scripting?
For sure. So, like Ellie, you mentioned 650 objects, but you will come across a situation, maybe you come across a situation, where there's not an object for something you're trying to do. Well, we've created these vanilla objects, a handful of objects where you can, for example, I've written my own script. Well, I can paste my PowerShell script into an object and put it right in the middle of the other 10 objects I'm using in my policy and add connections and add input parameters and output parameters and link them together. I can use those scripts that I wrote 2 years ago or I found on Google or a colleague wrote and actually incorporate that into my automation policies. What's really neat about that is Automation Manager is beyond scripting. It's the next level to scripting. I can pass input parameters and pass output parameters and go capture information and threshold on it and self-heal on it, and the sky's the limit with that. But to answer your question, Ali, yes, you can use your PowerShell scripts that you've already written. And of course, if you've written VBS and batch and all that type of stuff, you can execute those through Ncentral as well. Now, the next piece to automation, aside from automated monitoring, automated best practice, proactive and reactive type tasks, is how this relates to ticket management. So I've gone out, I've found the problems, I've automatically corrected the issues, but how do I get notified and how do I track that information? So Ncentral out of the box allows you to automatically receive an alert because Exchange is down. Exchange is not working, I need an alert. But I also have the capability to say, well, Exchange is down, send an email to just John or John's team or some people from John's team. Or in fact, what if I wanted to say something like automatically include an end user as an escalation so that they know that the problem is being looked into, they know that the problem has been raised, so they're not picking up the phone and calling the help desk and wondering why is Exchange not working, or whatever the case may be. So when it comes to tickets, utilizing your favorite PSA tool, or if you're utilizing Ncentral's help desk manager, we have the capability to take what is traditionally an email alert and take that and bring that into a ticket, so that when a problem happens like Exchange is down, automatically create a ticket within your PSA solution or within Help Desk Manager and include all the details to what happened within that ticket, all the symptoms of what's going on. But what's really neat is we layer on top of that. When we go ahead and we try to automatically resolve the issue, we may correct the problem in one action. And all that information is actually tracked and brought right into the ticket itself, regardless of whether you're using ours or the other PSA tools that we integrate with as well. What's really interesting, I find, about PSA integration and integrating ticketing tools to Ncentral is looking back to my experience as a network tech, it was very, very, very common for me to underbill. I would be on site for 75 minutes. The first 30 minutes or the first 15, 20 minutes at least, I hadn't interacted with that application before. I wasn't familiar with it. I had to spend some time learning it, figuring it out to understand how to troubleshoot the problem. And with that, I know many technicians feel that. I've had this conversation many times. There's a lot of guilt associated to that. The fact that I didn't know how to troubleshoot the issue, I feel guilty billing about it. So I wouldn't. So I would put time entries in there of, time entries of 30 minutes or 45 minutes and not track the entire time. And of course, that has a negative impact downstream when it comes to the efficiency that I'd produce. What's really interesting about ticketing is the fact that when we discover the problem, we auto-create that ticket. We track when the problem happened. We track when the problem was closed, so we discover the problem has resolved, and the steps that we took in between. And of course, anything a technician does is tracked within that ticket as well. What happens to that ticket is that we have the capability to automatically add time entry for billing purposes. So, what was traditionally, taking a technician, someone needs a password unlocked. It took him 5 or 10 minutes. He got connected. The end user kind of walked away, and he waited for them to come back, and he unlocked the password and all that type of stuff. Those type of actions we've translated now into automated reactive tasks. So we can have N-central take a corrective action for us. Whole round trip action takes 60 seconds, but we can actually assign billing for that through the N-central platform. Say, well, this type of task traditionally takes a technician 15 minutes, but we corrected this problem in 120 seconds. So what does that mean? That means we're billing for 15 minutes, as that's what it takes for a manual intervention. To an end user, they get a better experience. Something that they waited 15 minutes for traditionally, they're waiting 2 minutes for now. But when it comes to billing, you're getting better ROI, and the end user is getting a better experience overall.
And I think the net result of that, Shawn, is like you said, more efficient service, happier customer, but much more profitable service delivery for the MSP. So, being able to hit, the higher profitability margins there, the 50-60% on service, you still have the option down the road to, I'm going to discount some of that billable time, but at least you were able to bill full time and hit the profitability.
Absolutely, and there's a side effect that many people don't look at either, which is, if you look at your day, as a technician, I'm spending a total of 45 minutes a day unlocking users. It's a lot less interesting than working on project work, to be completely honest. It's less interesting. I don't wake up in the morning excited to go unlock users. Those type of tasks are something that I want to automate. I want done for me. I want a button that does it for me. And that's the delivery. That is what you get out of the Automation Manager and N-central as a whole. But Automation Manager is designed so that we're creating a task, a run task, instead of a 15-minute click-through exercise through remote control.
Yeah, so Shawn, I threw this in just to drive the point home. IT Easy, good customer of Enables. Doing just some of these automation tips that we have in here today, definitely around the help desk, automatically escalating tickets, but the onboarding and the proactive maintenance, and just having those scripts that, like you said, it's a button to fix an issue rather than manually connecting to a machine, fixing the issue, logging out. So a net result of all of that is they're able to answer 92% of their tickets within 8 minutes. So like you said, Shawn, much better customer experience. They're still billing probably more time than they're actually spending in the system, but that's because they chose to invest in automation up front. They could have kept on going with all the manual processes, but they chose, we're going to spend a little bit of time setting up all this great automation, and long term, these are the metrics that we want to go for.
So the last component I want to discuss when it comes to automation is one of the most important components, which is showing value. Ali, we're talking about automatically creating the tickets and time entry and billing for that, and the tasks associated to how that works. But the capability to generate a report that shows value to an end user is one of the most important components to this, of course. If I don't have the capability to show value to an end user, then automation won't matter in the long run, because of course I won't have customers to automate. So with that being said, we spend a tremendous amount of effort when it comes to reporting to create reports that resonate within your customers, and they see value, even at a glance they see value. Whether it's reporting on what patches you've installed within a certain time period, the last month most commonly, or what is the backup health of their softwares, what AV is installed, were there any threats, who was driving the majority of those threats. All that information gets funneled into that report manager software, and of course you can generate the customer facing reports as part of that. And even items like automation. I may be in a situation where I want to show, here are the scripts or the policies that I've run over the last month, and I want to put that into a PDF, or I want to print it off and show that to an end user. Someone that's perhaps a little bit more technical, or every now and again you have that opportunity where there's a technician in one of your customers, maybe a help desk tech, and he's going to have access to your N-central implementation and be managing, or at least partially managing, his site. And of course, you act as an escalation point beyond him. The report manager itself, or these reports I should say, are designed, like I said, to show value. that even at a glance that an end user gets something out of them. Of course, there's situations where, interacting with a client, or I've interacted with a client, and you have their attention for 60 minutes, but the majority of it is very quick. They see the title page, they see the first page or two, then it's about the conversation you have back and forth. When you're sending these reports, you're sending them monthly perhaps, you don't have the opportunity, you don't have the audience for someone to read through 15 pages of a PDF. Realistically, you have one page, maybe 2 pages to get their attention. So with that being said, these reports within the report manager not just have been through some of our customers and users, but they've gone directly to end users as well, and kind of took these reports and got feedback as part of their inception. So what that means is, we have reports designed to be one-pagers, designed to be, let me send this into an email, and it's one page, gives me all the details I want, and that end client moves on after that one page. But of course, when I do my 3-month on-site or my 6-month on-site, with the account manager, those reports have a little bit more meat to them, and it's something that you go through kind of one-on-one, of course, with an end user.
Yeah, Shawn, I think it's very different than a technical dashboard or some of the other reports you might find directly in Central. That's more for, you as the technician, you want to troubleshoot something, you want to understand trends. That helps you do your job. These are more business reports. They give the end customer that good feeling that they're getting their money's worth with your service.
Absolutely.
Okay, so just to wrap things up, just want to quickly review some of the numbers, talk a little bit about the ROI of automation. The easiest thing to cover here is talking about manual maintenance versus automation. So if we think about weekly maintenance, and it might depend on your schedule, you might be doing it every 2 weeks or once a month. Workstation maintenance is the things like Shawn was talking about, defrags, disk cleanups, reboots, things like that. If you're spending 15 or 30 minutes per desktop per week, that adds up over the month, especially when you think of how many workstations each customer has. Then we start looking at, different servers your customer might have, SQL servers, and the maintenance you perform on that, Exchange servers, and some of the proactive work you do to keep that running. Automation is very quick. You saw how that drag and drop interface, I just drag and drop a couple objects, I enter in some input and output parameters. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to create a typical policy versus the manual work of remotely connecting, waiting for that connection to boot up, going in, doing all the work, logging off, entering in data for the ticket. Automation is actually much faster, but the main thing we want you to take away from all that is that when you do the automation, once you're done. I have a policy now for workstation cleanup, and I'm going to run it on a weekly basis, and that just happens for me whether or not I'm logged into Central. When we take a typical customer example that we give is 20 workstations and 2 servers, just as a rough example. That multiplies out. When you think about half an hour a week or a couple hours a month per workstation, it all adds up to about 52 hours a month just for one customer site. When I multiply that out across more customers, so if you have 10 customers or more, we get into the hundreds of hours of time saving. So that's really, we think the ROI is kind of self-explanatory, but the important thing to take away is how easy it is to set up that automation. A lot of MSPs come to Enable concerned about learning a scripting language, thinking it's going to be a lot of research, investigation, training. I have to get a dedicated technician to do it, and that's really not the case. We've tried to create Automation Manager to be super simple, drag and drop. We have all the help files you need on all of those objects, and really within a couple days you should be familiar with the whole interface and be able to create any policy you want. So Shawn, we do have a couple questions from the audience. Other than that ROI that I just talked about, what other efficiencies, how many devices could a tech manage using some of this automation?
Yeah, for sure. This answer, of course, changes every now and again based on the verticals you support and obviously the types of environments you support. But with that being said, some of our customers get efficiency of around 400 to 500 devices per technician. and a lot has to do with implementing automation and in having that automatically, as Ali asked kind of very early on today, having that automatically pick up new devices and implement it for you. So that onboarding new sites and new devices is not a manual process, but instead you let N-Central kind of take the charge on that and set it up for you.
Okay, great. So Shawn, for the onboarding, we talked about automating onboarding, automatically discovering devices. Someone's asking, is that a cookie cutter process, or can I tweak it a little bit if I have a unique customer environment?
Yeah, for sure. We've done our best out of the box to meet 95% of your customers, but we acknowledge obviously that some customers have different requirements, maybe are similar, maybe they're not similar at all. It's simply a template, so that out of the box you have something that works on the vast majority of your customers. But when you have those exceptions, you can make those exceptions, you can exclude them, you can add extras and pepper on extra stuff for those special customers. We've done our best so that we cover off the vast majority, so that you're not recreating the wheel, every single time you onboard a customer, but in those unique situations you can make changes.
Okay, Shawn, so we have someone asking where they can find training on Automation Manager and get more information on that.
Yeah, for sure. So within the Enable Resource Center, we have a technical training area where you can review technical training videos. So we have here where you can grab technical training videos, as well as we have a subscription training system, meaning that we have in-depth training run by our sales engineering team on what to automate, how to automate, when to automate, and how that all kind of plugs together. And those schedules, if you actually navigate to the subscription training, you'll see that there is a training schedule here. And you can see how often those sessions are run. And you'll see, in fact, this Friday there's a session.
Okay, great. We always get this question, Shawn. What scripting engine is under the hood for Automation Manager?
Yeah, absolutely. We are using PowerShell. So the actual objects themselves are written in PowerShell. They appear as just little nice-looking icons that you drag and drop, but the actual engine itself is all PowerShell. That means that you can, like I said, use PowerShell scripts in the Automation Manager as well.
Okay, Shawn, we have someone inquiring about pricing for N-Central and some of the products. I would recommend if you visit n-able.com, right there on the homepage you can request pricing, and we have our whole pricing guide available to you, so you can see the breakdown by product, and we give some examples there. So just a couple more questions, Shawn, then we'll wrap up. I think you already addressed this one. You can run custom scripts in Automation Manager, PowerShell, VPS, etc. What about any specific demos of how-tos for Automation Manager?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have, with the launch of our next release, we'll have additional training videos for Automation Manager. And also in the current release, we have training videos on the Enabler Resource Center for Automation Manager. You can also take a look at our YouTube page, which is Enable IT, as there's additional training content there. Or, of course, you can create a ticket if you have any specific questions, or even join that subscription training if you'd like.
Okay, Shawn, last question that I see here, and if anyone wants to get their questions in at this time, please go ahead. Is Automation Manager integrated with N-Central? Can you talk about how that works?
Absolutely. Automation Manager is right within the N-Central console. If you're familiar with N-Central, on the left-hand side under Actions, you'll see Start Automation Manager. That opens up the designer. You get to build any type of policy you want. But of course, it's not just about building from scratch. There are a ton of policies already built into the N-Central server that you can build off of, make copies of, make your own versions of, for example. And that's all built right into N-Central as well. So to get to the designer, it's through the N-Central UI, and of course running the policies is through N-Central.
And we've done webinars on that topic specifically, walking through how to copy automation policies, edit them.
For sure.
If you have that gold level customer you want one policy for, and then tweaking it for the platinum customer.
If you take a look on the Enable Resource Center, you'll see that there's a section there under Community, I believe, which is Archived Webinars. And there's a few webinars of me and Ali talking to each other about automation.
Yeah, automating your Microsoft world was a really good series we did on OS automation, application automation, cloud automation. Lots of good content in there. So I think that's our time for today. So Shawn, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Everyone, hope that content was great for you. Hope you enjoyed the webinar. Have a great day.